Well, welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody. We have some great news coming in. We are joined today by Ann Vandersteel and Michael Jan, who are currently in and on near or on top of the Panama Canal right now in the Holiday Inn next to the military base. There's so much happening around the world right now. We're being distracted with drones, which are clearly our drones. Otherwise, they wouldn't have clearance over the airspace. We're being distracted by H-1B visas and who wants to hire who for their careers and their jobs. But the real problems that are happening right now are fires being lit throughout the entire world. We know about the things happening in the Middle East. We know about the things happening in Ukraine, Russia. But there is serious drama occurring in Panama right now. And this is, for me, one of the most interesting and timely interviews that we will ever do, because very few people are covering this story. And Ann and Michael are joining us right now. Thank you both for joining me here today. Let me know what's going on down there. Why are you guys down in Panama? You're always around different parts of the world. Usually I got to have a good feeling, but Panama, I think right now is just such an unknown commodity. Let's start at point A and work through the alphabet.
Well, I'm going to just say this, as I've said before, if Michael Jan shows up in your doorstep, it's not a good day. So it means Panama is definitely a very important chess piece on the global war on resources. The global war on just shutting America down, destroying America from within, the oldest trick in the book, using weaponized human migration. But there's more to it. And, the recent incantations of the Trump truth posts and, as you said, other posts that are coming out that are distractionary, they're designed to do exactly that, distract, inflame, but call attention to an area of the world that, frankly, is extremely important. And Michael Jan, like nobody else, has called out Panama now for the past 4 years, starting with Joe Biden's regime and installation. He started coming down here. So we are here. It is very purposeful. And we're also setting the record straight based on some of the information that was presented to the world that upset Panama greatly. The Panamanians were overjoyed when President Trump was reelected. And then they were confused by his recent truth post. So we're down here looking at everything Panama and studying every single aspect of this. And the picture is starting to become very clear. And part of it is, as I was explaining with Michael in a Substack I wrote earlier, there is a global war on resources going on right now. And it's happening everywhere. And Panama is no different. There is resources here that they need besides the canal. But the canal is strategic, clearly for military reasons and for our supply chain. So we built it. We gave it away for $1, but we are here to defend it. And we're going to also be friends of Panama because it's important that we maintain a good relationship with Latin America.
Yeah, I mean, the Panama Canal's right out that door. I mean, literally, you may hear a ship horn while we're online. Every once in a while, we're at Miraflores Locks, for those who know Panama. Fort Clayton, former Fort Clayton. Now they call it the City of Knowledge, the Ciudad del Saber, which we call the City of Dark Knowledge, or the City of Satan, basically, because this is where all the NGOs are. And they are absolutely hardcore doing evil to this world. You won't believe it. IOM, whose headquarters is like 5 minutes walk from us right now, their theater headquarters here, their actual headquarters is in Switzerland, but they hand out actual rape kits. They have male condoms, female condoms, abortion pills. They hand those out because the routes that they've established for the invasion routes, which they call migration, the women and children and men get raped down there every day, men, women, and children. So they hand out these rape kits with little flashlights. We've got a few of those rape kits. The flashlights, I don't know how much they cost. I'm going to guess it's some large number, but I accidentally dropped one and it shattered on the floor, that sort of stuff, made in China type stuff. They just had a UN airplane land here about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, and I couldn't find it on Flight Radar 24, actually, weirdly, but it just landed at an airport just near us. And, a large jet, actually.
One of our colleagues actually saw it land, so it's not fake news. We have video, not video, of a picture of it. You got to ask yourself, why won't it show up on Flight Radar or Flight Tracker? Kind of unusual, considering they are proud of their humanitarian efforts, so much so that they have 64 NGOs on this campus known as Fort Clayton, which is now the City of Satan or City of Knowledge. But it's really quite extraordinary when you sit back and you look at what America helped build and defend Panama and help remove a dictator at some point. I mean, there's a lot of history here with Panama, and it's been friendly. Unfortunately, Panama has been forsaken by the previous administration and used like a doormat to usher in millions of illegals coming through the Darien Gap at American taxpayers' expense, because frankly, we are the largest funder of it. We fund the UN. we outfund the next nation, Germany, by a factor of 17-1. That's how much more money the United States pours into the United Nations, which then pours that money right back into the IOM, International Organization of Migration, and a whole bunch of other NGOs that are funding the destruction and invasion of our country, in addition to trampling through UNESCO protected property in Darien Gap and destabilizing that region and the indigenous that live down there, completely upending with social issues, health issues that are also coming their way into the United States. So a lot happening, and Panama, unfortunately, does not have the military to defend itself. They are really dependent on the Americans, A, defunding this nonsense, B, I think, pulling out of the UN, and C, helping them clean up the mess that, unfortunately, the United States government has created.
So there's 64 NGOs are on that campus by them, just 64 on one campus?
Right out this window, we see them. We're looking out the window looking at them.
So there's more NGOs in Panama than there are schools or banks, at least in that area. I mean, that is the most highly populated area there is by NGOs. So you have IOM, obviously bringing migration. What other NGOs are down there?
UNHCR, HIAS. Well, we did have...
Of course, HIAS is down there.
Yeah, HIAS is Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society.
But HIAS is unmarked. Their office is right over here, but it's unmarked.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
You go up and knock on the door. There's no sign on the door or anything. You have to like follow breadcrumbs to find them. UNHCR is all. They got huge offices here. Mm-hmm. OAS, the Organization of American States, which is hardcore communist.
The other thing too that's on this campus as well, as Michael likes to point out, is the bioweapons labs. There is biopharmaceutical companies here. They are doing experiments here. It is a little unnerving considering what's happened in China, where we've offshored and funded gain of function. I don't know if they're doing gain of function on this campus or not, but it is kind of concerning. Panama City is the majority of the country. Like 4 million people live here in Panama City, and it's a lot more lean as you go out into the country, particularly down in the Darien. This place, however, is an incredible opportunity for Panama to kick every single NGO out. In fact, when Michael and I interviewed their former NSA, the National Security Advisor to the previous president, Oriel Ortega, I asked him in the interview, would it be a benefit if the United States defunded the UN and pulled out of the UN? Would that help you all regaining your sovereignty and stop being used like a doormat? And he was like, absolutely. So, I mean, they know what's going on.
So you mentioned right in the beginning, Anne, that this is about resources. Everything is about resources. That is the whole premise of globalism, is to control the resources of the rest of the world, whether that's currency or bread or apples or whatever it may be. Panama has humans. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Labor. But Panama has huge copper mines. And as we approach the era of AI and quantum, copper, gold, and silver will all become industrial metals at some point. That is the main purpose in those areas. But the copper mine, you said you guys were going to visit one of those too before we started recording. Are these NGOs, are they involved in the copper mining industry out there? How are the NGOs infiltrating besides migration? What are the other areas in Panama City that they're kind of taking control?
They're nothing but a taxpayer drain. It is literally, these people are here to do absolutely nothing except pretend to provide resources to the immigrants. They're not here to extract copper. They're here to suck literally money out of the United States of America taxpayer. And then it's seriously, I think the United States really is the welfare funders for the people that don't want to have real jobs. They come here and they sit in offices and drink coffee all day. I mean, frankly, we're staying in a hotel that is in the middle of the campus here, and you can see the people from these different NGOs coming in here, and at all hours of the day, they're just hanging out in the coffee shop. I don't really see any work ever getting done. I see a lot of people jogging. I see a lot of people just sort of hanging out, but I don't see actual work getting done. In fact, when we stand outside the OIM office, a lot of times you see people looking through the window going, oh no, those two are back. When we walked into the hotel, they're like, oh, hi, Anne. Hi, Michael. They know we're here. And in fact, one of the people that works in the hotel I've never seen before, when I walked downstairs in the lobby this morning, she said, hi, Anne. And I thought to myself, this is kind of creepy. It's really become an intel hub here, and you can see it. You get the sense that they know we're here and they're not happy we're here. The mainstream media, the Latin American Univision isn't happy that we're here. They're trying to paint us as something that we're not, when we're just literally reporting what we see, and we're supporting the government of Panama, who's been overrun by the United States criminals in charge right now. So we are really calling balls and strikes, and you would think that the Panamanian media would be open to that, but nope, they're no different than our deep state media. They're carrying the water for the globalists as usual.
And it's a very long track record of us using debt to take over Panama, Ecuador, all those countries around there for their resources. So their 1% is now never going to not be the 1%. They're permanently embedded in wealth from U.S. debt. But isn't there?
Let me clarify something now. Now it's China. China is doing the economic hitman thing now. Like they've taken Ecuador's electrical grid. I mean, and many others. China knows that if you control a country's electrical grid, you've got them. You've got their nervous system, right? And so they're doing that and causing massive damage in places like Ecuador to the Amazon River, feeder streams and all that sort of stuff. They're doing massive. I was just down in Argentina just, I don't know, 5 or 6 days ago. In fact, Masako Ganaha walked into IOM in Buenos Aires and asked for a job.
Wow.
Why not? Be bold. And,
Audacious.
Yeah.
You never know if you don't ask, right?
No, that's right. And they actually, the guy we talked with there in the office, he appeared to be like he was wearing the badge and all that. He said you'll have to apply with the main office in Switzerland, and you have to do it from your home country. But in any case, he said they're doing a hiring freeze now because Trump was reelected, and they're afraid that the United Nations will have their funding cut. Which actually, if President Trump is deadly serious about closing this down, the first thing he'll do is cut the United Nations funding. Mm-hmm. That's first and foremost. If you don't do that, then you're actually not serious, because the United Nations is the main arsonist. You can fight all the fires you want, but if you don't put out the arsonists, you'll never put out the fires.
It's true.
And we're, like you were saying, Ann, we're massively overfunding the UN. By the way, just for those who don't understand the history, the UN was created by Bolshevik Russia and the United States after World War II with the purpose of stopping all future wars. We are now at war 72 after this promise of the end of all wars since World War II. Right. Are the locals down there, are they hip to this game? Do they understand what's happening to their country?
I don't think so. I mean, there's some Panama Canal Zonians, the Americans that grew up here with their families working in the canal and so on and so forth, that pay attention. But the Panamanians, by and large, are very proud people. And, as much as they love their country, I don't think they understand the significance of the American investment in this canal over 100 years ago. And we came here and literally took it over from a failed operation and built it into something that's become incredibly profitable for Panama and made it a very strategic piece of property, frankly, for this hemisphere. And under the Monroe Doctrine, the Panamanians and Latin America was protected from the creep of communism. When all that ended and Jimmy Carter gave the canal away and essentially signed a treaty with a dictator ostensibly that was replaced by another dictator that we had to come in later and extract and remove, we lost, the wheels came off the bus, and you see the evidence of communism everywhere. And unfortunately, like our own education system, the Panamanians had their history eradicated the way we have. And so they don't understand how significant the American investment was. Now, people 40 and older in this country definitely do. Maybe 45 and older definitely do. But younger, it's like our own country. Gen Xers lost. They don't have a clue about anything. They expect the government is a state to protect them. And sidebar, in North Carolina, after what just happened with Hurricane Helene in the 10 weeks I spent there, all the lefties in Asheville that believed the state was there to take care of them are now going, whoa, they are not our friend. And so there's been like an unfortunate trial by fire awakening. And that's unfortunately what hasn't happened here. They've just seen the state kind of take over and everybody gets a job. Like I said, these NGOs employ a lot of people and they're just getting paychecks to do absolutely nothing. So this country is in a crisis that they don't fully comprehend. But what they're going to unfortunately learn, or fortunately learn, is that, under the Trump presidency, they're taking a hard look at the weaponized human migration, and Trump is serious about mass deportation. So places like Fort Clayton could possibly become a place that is sort of a housing, if you will, for some of the deportees as they get shuffled back to where they came from. However that gets sorted out, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, Panamanians, by and large, don't appreciate what Americans have invested. They just believe that the canal was theirs and they created it, and their country is great because of the canal, because it's all their stuff. Well, they're running it, but 70% of that traffic is American dollars going through that canal. And I will say this, they have treated us fairly in terms of our Navy gets to bump to the front of the line every time we come through. Could the fees be renegotiated? Absolutely. But has our government created a massive problem that's existential to the people in Panama, particularly the indigenous? Absolutely. Have we destroyed their UNESCO property, the Darien Gap, along with the Chinese, raping
That's
the trees out
that's
of
the
there.
Chinese that are really destroying that straight up. I mean, I've spent
Right.
months down there. That's Chinese.
But again,
hardcore.
we're allowing that. We allow it by the funding of the UN that the Chinese take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing is this is a sovereign country. By the way, the
Right.
United States created Panama.
Yeah.
We created Panama so that we could create the Darien Gap. That's so we could create the Panama Canal.
Right.
Correct.
The Darien Gap, we kept the Darien Gap in place because for
That's
various reasons. One was a military and biological buffer. But now there's a road being built through the Darien Gap, which a lot of people still don't believe, but I assure you it's there 100%.
Panamanians
yeah.
didn't believe it. They didn't know about the bridge that goes down there.
Yeah, I first found it. I was down here staying in the Darien. I was always looking for it. I'm like, they're going to build a road. And finally, I saw some mud tracks on the road, and I followed them back. And like, bingo, there it is. Launched the drone. 2 bridges that they're building. I drove back up to Panama City, where we're at now, and I was talking with some people in the government. They're like, no, we're not building a bridge or roads down there. I'm like, it's mud on my boots. I mean, that mud on my boots just came from the bridge. I mean, I just drove up. Like,
and you had drone footage of the bridge.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
published it. Yeah.
So they're making it so down here. So the reason you guys are down here obviously is migration, right? This is literally point A when you're looking
More
at
than
America.
that. The invasions and the canal. This is so important to the United States, the Panama Canal in Panama, because it's also an invasion route. That's why just a couple of weeks, roughly about a week after Biden was installed, we flew from Washington. We were at the inauguration. Flew down to El Paso. I flew down there with Masako Ganaha and Chuck Holton, and we were just getting flooded immediately into Texas from the aliens, like within 24 hours. Then we flew to Colombia and went to the Darien Gap on the Colombian side. It was quite dangerous, actually, on that side. And then came back over to the Panama side. And then since that time, I spent about 6 months in Panama. Many months of that, about 3 to 4 down in Darien. And then the rest up around here in other parts of Panama, looking at other issues like this canal.
Is it getting any better?
No.
No.
So still just massive amounts of people coming
Much
in.
worse.
Yeah.
Worse than ever, which is what we've been warning about since day one. So if you look back at the things that I started warning about, like for instance, you'll see if you look up my name, Michael Jan, and screw worms, you'll see that about maybe 3 years ago, I started warning that I think we're going to have a screw worm outbreak in the United States. And people are like, what are screw worms? Screw worms are a larva that comes from they're flesh-eating larvae that come from a fly. Those screw worms cost the United States billions of dollars in beef and other meats in previous generations, but our ancestors fought them out of the United States, down through Mexico, all the way through Central America, and the front line on the fight against screw worms is the Darien Gap, because there are screw worms in South America. So we have a facility not far from us where the USDA irradiates billions of flies and drops them out by aircraft and other methods. And an entomologist learned many years ago that the female screwworms mate only once. So if they mate with an inert male, then a sterilized male, then they don't reproduce, right? So they release billions of these things. So when I discovered that 3.5 years ago, I immediately thought they're going to release those back in the United States because I know what their game plan is. So I published it immediately, and I reached out to the USDA here and asked to tour their facility. Keep in mind, I've dealt with governments all over the world, especially ours. And the tone of their response, which I have published, you'll see the emails online. I've published them a long time ago. I was like, they are going to release those screwworms back in the United States. And now you'll see it's an emergency in the United States now.
Yep.
They're back. They're in places like Costa Rica now. Belize is worried about them. Other places, the screwworms are marching north. And now there's an emergency. There's a facility in Texas where they're monitoring. I assure you those screwworms are going to make it back to the United States because we know what they're doing. They're attacking our food supply, right?
Yep. 100%.
And that was how it was so easy to predict, like Nord Stream and Groningen gas fields over in Europe.
You know, this morning, my husband called me, Eric, and said, Ann, I went to the grocery store, Publix, big chain in the Southeast, right? There were no eggs. It wasn't like one brand.
No eggs in Publix?
No eggs in Publix. 0 eggs in Publix. And what is the other thing that Michael, brought in a specialist, Dr. Michael Vickers, who was a #1 veterinarian for Texas at Commission of Agriculture. We
Anthrax specialist.
Anthrax.
And he also helped with the screw rooms
And he helped
program
with the screw
back when he
rooms.
was a younger veterinarian.
So we
Always go to the veterinarians.
Yeah. We met with this guy. We spent hours with him. Incredible interview. But he also said, listen, tuberculosis is making a comeback. And again, what are they bringing across the border? They're bringing TB across the border. And the problem with that is it's zoonotic, so it transfers from animal to human.
It's
human
bovine
animal.
TB. Yep.
Yep. And so cows in Texas are being slaughtered. Like one cow gets it, they slaughter the whole herd. And so Texas, believe it or not, an $18 billion a year cattle industry, beef industry, is on the verge of losing its TB-free status. Now, can you imagine if Texas, which is a massive beef producer, loses its TB-free status? What is that going to do to the beef supply in this country? If eggs are absent in my Publix in South Florida, what is that going to do to the beef supply? They are trying to starve us out. And then
they're hitting our protein supply more specifically.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And then you look at what here in Panama and this canal, going back to the electrical significance and power, China figured this out. And you all suffered a major power failure a year ago at winter in Texas. Your grid went down, if you remember.
A couple years ago.
A couple years ago, excuse me. The Chinese invested $1 billion into the natural gas engine here for the power grid, for the power plant that runs the grid in which the canal sits. So could the Chinese flip the switch and turn off the engine, the energy here at the canal? Yep, they did it in Ecuador when Ecuador said, we're not issuing visas to the Chinese anymore. Chinese went, oh yeah, boom, you're out of power. And then the whole country went dark. They could do that here, just as they could also screw with our food supply by just slowing down their ships from China. So there's so many other ways that we can be attacked and we are not prepared for if we don't get a handle on the situation and turn Latin America into our de facto Chinese partner, meaning stop doing business with the Chinese. Just don't use them for their widgets and their cheap, crappy stuff that breaks in 5 minutes. Turn that business over to the folks here, issue jobs here, which will bring up the people out of poverty, and let the higher paying jobs in the manufacturing that are, more towards our national security interests, bring all that electronic stuff home. Because right now the Chinese are putting in their DPKR chips into every single piece of electronic, which allows them to spy on us, whether we have the damn thing turned on or not. So we have a national security crisis and the Chinese are smack in the middle of it. And to that point, the natural resources, the global war on resources, their Kubra copper mine here, which is about 7 hours from where we're sitting, hopefully we're going to fly over in the next couple of days, is very significant because we have a massive U.S. shortage of copper, and we need that from everything from military equipment to AI, et cetera. So it's a real race to the finish here, and the United States is in the position to reinstitute a version of the Monroe Doctrine and make everybody here a friendly. And, we've got Argentina, we've got Bukele in El Salvador, and we should have Panama. We should not, be pissing anybody off here.
No, bringing up copper, this is something I talked about maybe like 6 months ago on my show. I don't think people realize the significance, like what copper's in. Whether it's in the piping of your home, electronics, every chip has massive amounts of copper. And most of the copper we're getting right now is a byproduct. Yeah, exactly, on everything we're communicating on. But most of the things that we're seeing out here right now, you're talking about supply chain and power grid on the Panama Canal. If the Chinese turn off the power on the Panama Canal for 3 days, this nation goes into a supply chain crisis.
100%. We are 3 days from a complete supply chain crisis. And interestingly enough, the Chinese right now are in a banking crisis. And so they've spent Michael knows, he's studied this more than anybody, the Belt and Road Initiative. He's been all over the world tracking the BRI and looking at all the different avenues of rail and ports, et cetera. They have spent an enormous amount of money. And just like our government, they will just turn on that printing press and print it into an oblivion. But they have had 40 banks as of today collapse and be merged into other big banks, not too dissimilar with what's happening in our country. But that is going to have a domino effect in everything. And, when you start to get into real crisis like that, that's when governments get really squirrely. And if they feel a threat coming from the United States, flexing, saying, we're going to come down here and cozy up to our friends in Panama, you don't know when caged animals will do. That's the part that's of concern at this point.
That's right. Yeah, and people are I've been covering the shipping industry for a year and a half, and there's not many economists that are even covering this. We have at least one bankruptcy per month right now of shipping companies with 250 to 1,000 trucks. Relatively speaking, those are small to mid-sized shipping companies. But what's happening is they're allowing them to go bankrupt, and then the larger shipping companies are purchasing the assets out of bankruptcy and rehiring. That is centralization. So you're watching more centralization of banking, more centralization of shipping, more centralization of power grids and control, and that's being distributed globally. So, Michael, first of all, I love the way your brain works in these things. So I'm gonna turn on the Michael Jan brain right now. What is the significance right now of Panama, the copper Belt and Road Initiative around the world, which has been taking place for 25 years under the table? Most people have not paid attention to it. You have. Where exactly are we in this global takeover, if you can estimate it? And of course, no one knows for sure. But to me, when I'm watching these things, I'm watching centralization of power in every possible capacity all throughout the world, whether it's banking, shipping, trucking, the food supply. Right now in Maryland, every farmer in Maryland right now is under attack from commercialization. Small farms are being bought out all throughout the country at significant premiums. It's almost impossible to say no, except most of these farmers who love their farms and want to leave them to their kids. They're saying no. Other than that, everyone's saying yes. Where are we at in this globalized takeover of freedom around the world, in your estimation?
Well, there's various oligarchical systems that are at play here that are fighting, right? We've got the Chinese, Russians, of course. We've got Zionists, which are quite powerful. A lot of people get angry when you say Zionists, but we're not children here. We're going to talk what's going on.
Please.
Like I was just down in Buenos Aires, spent almost 2 months in Argentina. Buenos Aires is actually this. Not to conflate Zionism with Judaism. Those are two separate things. Many of the Zionists are Christians. Many are actually Muslims.
Many Muslims.
Yeah. And even some Hindus. I mean, it's complex. Many are atheists. But the bottom line is, there, as far as Jewish cities go, Buenos Aires is the second largest in the world.
Yes.
And here in Panama, this is largely controlled by Zionists actually as well, right? In Panama City, right? And likewise, I mean, I look at these different oligarchical structures around the world. Whether I've written 3 books on Chinese information war, right? I think what you're going to see is a large fight. For instance, in Argentina, where I just left, right? Again, just spent almost 2 months there. I think that you're going to see eventually a large fight between Chinese and Zionists in Argentina. Now, I was just at CPAC there, maybe a month ago, and when they opened CPAC, it was Viva Argentina, Viva, United States, and Viva Israel, right? And so, I mean, it's clear that this is everywhere I go, right? So the fight is not about just between the United States and China. It's between Zionists and China, right? Because Trump is Zionist. Let's be realistic. He's openly that. This is not conspiracy theory. This is actually Trump. So you see,
he wrote a book about his Kabbalah teacher. Like that's not make believe. That's in his biography. Yeah,
it's straight up, right? I mean, it's just as real as the air we're breathing, right? And so, like these fights that we see in the Middle East that are growing, right? Or the fight in Europe and Ukraine. These are all related. These are all part of the same fights. You got people fighting over routes like the Panama Canal. That's why we spend so much time here. We were just recently over in Singapore at the Strait of Malacca, which is another incredibly important fight that the Chinese they're building another corridor in Thailand called it's across the Kra Isthmus. I first looked at that about 10 years ago. I was down there with a friend of mine and who will be here in a few days. And I call him JBS. He's the one who publishes on my Twitter. He's the only other person that has publishing rights. His name is JBS because I call him, he's the Jew behind the scenes. He's Jewish. And so one time we were in Tokyo because he's a great China fighter. And, we're in a dimly lit place and he's smoking a cigar. And I'm like, you really are the Jew behind the scenes, And so anyway, the Jew behind the scenes is landing here soon. And he really goes against the Zionists. He goes against he'll see this too. He goes against the Zionists so hard, man. He's a very effective fighter. But the bottom line is we first went to the Kra Isthmus together about 10 years ago, JBS and I, right? And we were looking at the route that China was building between the Gulf of Siam and the Andaman Sea. And right now, China is building their railway. They just opened another terminal about 10 days ago in Thailand. They keep building it further south. It's going to Bangkok, then it'll go down to the Kra Isthmus, eventually to Malaysia, and then Singapore. But the Kra Isthmus will be sort of a Panama Canal. It was something that was envisioned maybe 300 years ago, just like this canal was envisioned far before it happened. But the Strait of Malacca is a serious threat for Asia, right? And China wants to be able to go straight across the Kra Isthmus. Now, they're also, as China builds their railway south, they've already knocked out thousands of Thai businesses because you can use their Temu app or whatever it's called and order, products from China, and they make it down to Thailand within a few days. I had a friend of mine. She's a Thai businesswoman. I've known her for many years. We were in one of the cruises together, actually in Thailand, and she ordered some products recently, and to see how long it would take, she ordered, I think, from 9 different companies on the Temu app. And it took them, she did that specifically because she wanted to see if they all but 9 different, she's pretty methodical. She's a very successful businesswoman. And so she said all the products arrived within a few days, right? So straight from China into Thailand. It's knocking Thai businesses out of business. It's hurting her business. And so in addition to building the route down, that's also an invasion route that China can use into Thailand. Now, the Thais think that they're invincible. I assure you they're not. I've spent a lot of time in Asia, about 19 years, much of that time in Thailand. I used to have an office in Chiang Mai, and Chiang Mai is the #1 destination for Chinese tourists. Many of the people that go through Darien Gap, many of the Chinese who go through Darien Gap fly to Chiang Mai first. Then they go, not all of them, but some do, many do. And then they go to either Netherlands or Turkey, and then they go to Ecuador, and then they come through Colombia, and then they go through, the Darien Gap, and then we intercept them. And then I see them again when they come through Texas or Arizona or California. I've been across the entire southern border. Ann and I have been across a huge amount together. We were down at SpaceX many times, provoking Elon Musk to finally stop smoking dope and go look at the border, because let's face it, he's just a dope smoking actor. But the bottom line is we've been to SpaceX a lot. I mean, let's just talk the truth here, right? Is he really that guy? And so, we're watching aliens come across the Mexican border onto SpaceX property. While aliens are coming into SpaceX, aliens are preparing to go to Mexico. SpaceX, I've been to SpaceX at Boca Chica probably 50 times, right? And I mean, I've been there a lot. And we camped out there like, I don't know, 10 days or something, or 2 weeks or something. Anyway, the bottom line is it's right on the Rio Grande, right? And so, I mean, those starships that are launching, I mean, eventually, if there's an accident, it may kill a bunch of Mexicans who are watching. It's that close. It's amazingly close. And but the bottom line is this is all the corridor that goes by SpaceX, the I-69 corridor through the RGV, the Rio Grande Valley. It goes up by the Brownsville port and all that by Houston, and goes up to the Great Lakes, where the World Economic Forum has another office at Chicago by the Great Lakes, right?
Yep. I know right where it's at.
Comes right through here. They're building that railway that the bridge that we're talking about down the Darien Gap will go all the way up to Chicago, right? I mean, they're connecting as we talk. Railways are being built in Mexico. Many are already built. For instance, the Tren de Maya, I think is what it's called. I haven't gone on it yet. And they're working on the interoceanic corridor there, just like they're working on the bioceanic corridor down in Argentina, which we were just at about 7 days ago, probably. These are all part of a larger architecture. Now let's go back to Israel. Now, the Indo-European corridor from Mumbai over in India goes, it's a sea route over to United Arab Emirates, which they, eventually will maybe finish, through Saudi Arabia, through Jordan, through Israel, through Gaza, and through Haifa, right? And then over to Europe. Now, there's a lot of energy off Gaza, right? There's a reason why they're ethnically cleansing, doing a genocide in Gaza. Let's just call it what it is.
Yes.
That's what they're doing. They're cleaning it out so that they can have that corridor. This is all about corridor. I keep warning the Panamanians. You've got giant pork chops hanging around your neck, right? Somebody will get those pork chops. Somebody's going to do it. It's either going to be us or it's going to be China.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like Hawaii. Hawaiians recognized that, many generations ago. That's why one of the Hawaiian kings had all the different, like Russian flag, British flag. He incorporated them all into one flag, U.S. flag, and he was trying to placate everybody. But the big players knew somebody will take Hawaii. Either it's going to be Japan or Russia or somebody, right? And it was us in the 1950s. What was it, 53, 54? When did we make it a state? And
somewhere around there, yeah.
What's that?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, and in Alaska as well. I mean, but the bottom line is that we did some. Somebody was going to take it, and because it's a giant pork chop and it's a strategic weakness, just like this. I warned the Panamanians. I mean, you may think that you can guard it with machismo. You will not do it. You will be beaten.
Yeah.
You will be defeated if you don't pile up with a good oligarchical structure that will keep you in place and let you run it and have the same illusion of freedom that we have, which is an illusion, right? I mean,
100%.
The bottom line is there's no way to defend it. There's no way for Panama to defend it against serious players. Yeah. It just won't happen. And this is just too vital to just be sitting here. It's basically a big piece of meat with a bunch of predators swirling around it right now.
So they're building an entire venal infrastructure. This is literally like China could be a heartbeat and be able to pump products out, which is, products are a weapon. Temu is a weapon. Technology is a weapon. Everyone in the world, I think, sees things wrong, right? Like I just upgraded my iOS on my phone, and the whole front of the terms and conditions, like you're going to have new icons and all this, and at the bottom of it's like, yeah, you're gonna have less privacy too, but you're gonna have new icons. It's gonna be flashy and cool. Yeah, you're gonna love it.
Even have less privacy? I mean, I'm not even sure how it could be less privacy unless we get from the dope smoker Joe Rogan put some chips in our mind, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is this guy even real? I mean, the more I look at him, and I want to go back and now I'm never going to rest on my laurels, but at some point you do need to cash in some of your credibility. And I have been picking person after person accurately for years, whether it's General McChrystal or General Menard in the Afghan wars, person after person who are seen as heroes. I haven't gone after all of them, but very occasionally I pick out my arrow and I go, "Foom, that's one of them." Elon Musk, I'm telling you, that guy's a fraud and he's an actor, right? He's somebody who's playing the big tech super duper and he's playing the big ultra billionaire, but he is an actor. He might be partly that thing, and he might think he's that thing. But at the end of the day, he is a boy. He's a piece of meat, right? He is an actor. He's a dope head. He openly talks about it regularly, right? This is
he
very
put out something about ketamine. Like
he's being used in he's being used in these wars. He's being used as credibility. He pushed the jab, and then later he goes, "Oh no, it was dangerous." Well, he said he took 2 of them to go to Germany to visit his gigaplant. Well, guess what? I went to Germany multiple times with Masako Ganaha at the same time. We never got the jab. So this is the guy that's supposed to put brain chips in us and go to Mars and build all these Tesla cars, but he can't figure out how to get to Germany without getting the jab. He's not that guy, right? Seriously, if I were him and Germany said, you have to get the jab or you can't come and go to your gigafactory, guess what I would do? On Monday, that factory will be closed.
That's right.
It will be closed. You will drop that, and I will come without getting jabbed, or they will be out of business. It'll be that simple, Germany. You want to play? Let's play. I'm not taking your damn jab, right? But he's not that guy. He is an actor, right? And this is what we have to come to the realization of, that we are in the middle of a great kayfabe, a great movie. It goes on and on and on until people have the courage to stand up and say, listen, the Americans are caught in this dilemma that they allow themselves I'm American to the core, right? But they go, well, it's got to be this one or this one. It's red pill or blue pill or whatever it is, green pill or red pill, whatever. Why don't you not take either pill from somebody you don't know, right? You don't have a choice between this pill and this pill. You have a choice of also not taking it, right? You have a choice of saying, get those pills out of my face, right? Get them out, right? You don't have to take one of those pills. You can say, no, I will not send any money to Trump. I will not send any money to Biden or any of those clowns, that whore, whatever her name is, Kamala, right? They don't deserve our respect. And if we give them respect, they will use it against us.
Well, I think it's an overwhelming theme in America is that we have people celebrating going from one billionaire ruling class to a new billionaire ruling class. We need to stop being ruled by billionaires.
Like independent and free thinking, as I said, we need a department of common sense. With let's not add any more departments to this already ridiculous totalitarian fascist bureaucracy we have, and let's just bring back common sense and strip us down to the 19 essential services and the basic foundation of our government, because the people need to learn how to govern themselves. And my prayer and hope for the people in Panama, the people in North Carolina, is that you can be a beacon for freedom and sovereignty if you just open your eyes. And North Carolina is learning that the hard way because they've been abandoned by every aspect of government. It's been private industry and private people, more people, frankly, that have come to their aid, and they've gotten to learn that we're the government. We help each other and we sort it out. And I think we can use that as a model to restore the republic nationwide if people just want to be open to it. But to the point, and to your point, every time we turn around and go, oh, Trump is our savior, people forget, and my Bible is on my bed. It's, no, Jesus Christ is the only Lord and Savior, right? He's the only one who can come back and fix this. Trump can't do it on his own. He needs every single one of us, which is why voices like Michael Yon, your show, and other people that are brave enough to be independent and ask these hard questions and have these difficult conversations are so critical at this point, because people just want to expect somebody to come in and fix the problem. And for every person that voted for President Trump, I'm happy for you, but don't just sit there and expect him to fix this with a magic wand, because even every single member of his cabinet can't fix it. Elon can't fix it. Vivek can't fix it. It's going to take Congress to change the laws that we have, or it's going to take some very brave people to do what really is necessary, which is to prove that a lot of the laws in the books are completely unconstitutional and need to be removed. And the people that put them in there need to be prosecuted. And a lot of the people we have in our government aren't even legit because they don't have an oath of office. But this is stuff that no one wants to take 5 seconds and read anything and learn and fully comprehend just how illegitimate all of this is. So, here we are. Well, Michael and I are down here and we'll go wherever we need to go. Maybe it's Greenland next. I don't know. But we are going to continue to put all this in front of everybody. And hopefully some thought-provoking people will go, I need to get more vocal. I need to get involved. And we can change the direction of this Titanic called SS America before she crashes and burns right here in the Panama Canal.
But she's coming up against the waves right now, and the rocks are getting big.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how close we are to a collapse statistically, right? Like, and you bring a good point up. I'm a huge Trump supporter. I love Trump. I've also never been under the illusion ever that one man can fix all the problems of the world. What Michael just described is an industrial rating system. That is a way of rating every nation throughout the world with ease of shipping and ease of movement of products, which is profits back to one nation, garnering more power.
Right.
So when we look at the things happening in the United States, we look at the things happening in Panama, all throughout the world, they're synonymous with the same thing, is that what our governments are good at is, like Michael said, creating the illusion of freedom. And that illusion is fading. Like right now, just looking at kind of a weird place to inject crypto, just looking at the crypto space, where right now you have people that are flooding the IRS website, disclosing to the government where they have their cryptocurrencies. That is completely against the ethos of crypto. You can kiss my rear end. Like, if there's a penalty next year, I'll ignore that one too. We have to start bucking up. We have to start being able to understand that we are in control of our own lives, that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, and that God rules all. But we need to support that methodology. Right now, we're backing things that are completely contradictory to freedom. We are backing things that are completely moronic. I mean, the mere fact that, you create the term crypto means hidden, right? Like hidden. And now there's people going, oh, I have to disclose by tomorrow, by the 30th. I've got to tell them where all of my Bitcoin is. Like, these are ridiculous things. It just shows how sheepish mankind has become.
Yeah.
We were an ungovernable nation. I mean, that's where America began, right? We have muskets, we have courage, and we will take our land any way we like. And now we're sitting here. Is it okay if we have a musket? Is it okay if we have a pellet? Can we have some gunpowder, please, sir? Like, where does this end? And places like Panama, I've never been there, but I'm assuming that it's probably even worse. I'm pretty certain that the Panamanian society is more apathetic than America, because at least America has social media and people like you two out there waking people up.
Yeah, they definitely are more apathetic here because it's been, like I said, their history books have been rewritten. And so they believe that the Panama Canal and Panama was created by Panamanians. It wasn't. It was created by Americans. That being said, the Panamanian people are incredible people. They're lovely people. I love coming here. That's a wonderful place to be, no matter whether you're in downtown Panama City, which is very, high end and, uber wealthy, or you're in the Darien Gap, which is actually where I prefer to be because it's so interesting. And the people are super nice, albeit you get around 4,000 to 6,000 illegal immigrants, and some of them aren't so nice. At the end of the day, they are there to pass through and get to our country, which is where they have their expressed, mission, the fait accompli, to destroy America from within. And they're doing a damn good job of it, but they didn't do it alone. They did it with the bureaucracy of the United States government, the United Nations, the globalist elite, the World Economic Forum, the powers that we have essentially given ourselves and our sovereignty to, and we've done it a long time ago. But it started with, forcing people into income tax and creating the Federal Reserve and the IRS and the birth certificates and Social Security, all these things that are austerity programs designed to create a debt slave society, which we were not. I think Trump, even on was it a Rogan interview? And I don't like to quote Joe Rogan in front of Michael, but Trump was talking about, the income tax was never around in the 1870s. We were a very wealthy nation on tariffs alone. And if we go back to tariffs, what he's talking about, and remove the personal income tax, we will be a wealthy nation again. In fact, this inflation problem will go away. And when countries can stand on their own and reduce inflation, which is why Milei is pegging the Argentine money to the US dollar, he sees what Trump is going to do. He's betting on Trump, and he bet on Trump before, when he was elected, before Trump was elected, and it was looking pretty dicey. So
well, Bukele is doing the same thing. I mean, they're using US dollars there. And I find it interesting that he took the loan from the IMF. The IMF said, get rid of Bitcoin as a legal tender. All he did was start buying more Bitcoin with their money.
Yeah.
So we're watching these revolutions occur in other nations, but here, most people don't realize that the profits that the Federal Reserve makes, which are tremendous profits by our Constitution, are supposed to go to the U.S. Treasury.
They don't.
Every penny that we have paid in taxes has been illegal from the moment we've been born.
It goes overseas, right into the IMF, into the World Bank.
Enter right here.
Enter
City
right
of
here.
Satan.
City of Satan. To destroy us from within. It is the most unbelievable social experiment I've ever seen, in people just ignoring the evil all around them that they're funding. As I say, the Americans have been building their own gallows for years, and they don't realize they're about to step into the noose, and someone's going to kick the chair.
Well, and you guys use the term Satan City, and I don't think that most people realize how literal you're saying that statement is. I mean, the Darien Gap through Colombia all the way up through Mexico, these are very high dense populations of actual Satan worshipers, of those who worship Satan. And I think most Americans are still under the illusion that when someone says they're Christian, that they believe in God, or when someone says that they're Jewish, that they believe in God. In reality, a lot of them use that religion as cover to practice dark magic. And that stuff is happening through the Darien Gap. Now, one thing that I noticed just from what you're talking about is you have 4,000 immigrants. Most of them seem like nice people, but there's a core that you realize these aren't good people with good intentions. They hide them like in a rugby game, where one guy has the ball and everyone surrounds him and they're moving towards the goal line. That is what migration is. So every migrant coming into our country, every illegal alien stepping foot on American soil is not a horrible person. Some of them are, and they're rotten to the core, but they use the leverage like they do with the media of, oh, it's just women and children. It's not. I've been saying this. I got death threats in 2021 for basically saying that there's no way. I have friends at the border, and 80% at that time, 80% of the people crossing were military age men. Mm-hmm. There was just a huge shipment while you guys were down there of military age men only, right? That happened while you guys were down there. You guys have been seeing this firsthand. These are not women and children looking for a brand new nursery school and a place for the mom to do laundry. These are people coming to America to serve a purpose, who are being paid by globalists to do something in America. Where do you see that going? Why was Mayorkas down there? That was another thing. Like, why is Mayorkas down there in the last couple of days? That wasn't announced in America at all, but you have footage of him landing and him being there. Why is Mayorkas in Panama right now?
Well, he came. I was down in the Darien Gap, and I was about to go help some congressmen on the border up in Arizona, and one of them tipped me off and said, "Hey, Mayorkas is going to Panama." So I aborted that trip to Arizona, and I waited in Darien. I thought, you know what? If he goes to Panama, there was only a report he was going to Panama City. But I thought, if he goes to Panama, I bet he'll take a helicopters and land at this certain place. So I just waited there for 4 days, like a good soldier, right? And he landed right in front of me. And I had video, and I've got video of him going into the camp at San Vicente Camp. I call it China Camp. We call it China Camp, right? And he was there. It's on his Twitter. Came in 4 Blackhawks, and he brought more money and increased the size of the flow, right? And keep in mind, Mayorkas used to be a board member on HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. He was a board member. HIAS is the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and Mayorkas, he is the son of Jewish refugees from Cuba himself to the United States.
Originally from Spain. He's a bloodline of a converso. Mayorkas is a converso from Spain. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and he literally, yeah, and so he literally became a board member on HIAS. So if you go to HIAS.org, HIAS HAIS.org, you'll I'm sorry, HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, you'll see them congratulating him, leaving his board position and going and becoming the head of U.S. Department of Homeland Security, right? So he brought more money, right? And if you look at, if you go to highest.org right now and look at all the donors on there, it's like a whole line of Shapiro's and that sort of thing, Pritzkers and all these big names. And I mean, let's face it, they're invading the United States. It's crystal clear, and they're doing it nakedly. And also, so are Catholic Charities, the Protestant services, and so many others that are just. It's a long list, right? And there's more than 60 of them right here, right out our window.
Yeah, there's no one that's innocent. I think that's one of the things. Now, to be honest with you, migration is primarily a Jewish thing, right? Like it's obvious. Most of the NGOs, like HIAS, a lot of these things have Israeli roots that go back to, like, HIAS is from New York City, but it's all funded by Israelis, the entire process. But no one is exempt. These are Catholic charities, Protestant charities, Christian charities, Muslim charities. All of them are designed to do one thing. You create war in a foreign nation. That war creates refugees. Refugees create profits for NGOs. NGOs ship the refugees into a new country, which will eventually be flooded. And it brings about one question I've been asking on my podcast for a year and a half. What is the American culture? We have no American culture anymore because our culture is now 5,000 cultures in each city.
That's right.
You know, I think one thing that was brought up is the Indians. You know, that gets very little playtime, right? The Indian invasion. I'm in Texas, just north of Dallas. My neighborhood, in the front of my neighborhood, is all Texans and Californians and New Jersey and Chicago, people who fled blue states. The back of our neighborhood is almost entirely Indian. Frisco, Texas, half Indian.
Same in Canada. Same in Canada. We went to Canada earlier this year and stayed in Brampton near Toronto. And it was all Indian except for one army officer that we stayed with for more than a week. And it was all in, like, Sikhs and Hindus. Keep in mind, I spent 2 years between India and Nepal, about a year in each country, right? So I spent more than 19 years in Asia. I've been all over Asia, right? And so I've seen a lot of things. And I know that the Sikhs and Hindus will end up fighting each other, and they are, right? And the Indians more generally, and the Chinese will end up fighting each other, just like Kurds and Turks fight each other, just like Kurds and Arabs fight each other, and Kurds fight each other, and Muslims fight each other. And over in Ireland, the Protestant and the Catholic Irish fight each other. If you go up to Belfast, they got more than 20 miles of giant wall to keep Protestants from Catholics separated. But this divide and conquer strategy has been, used since forever. I mean, God did it in the Tower of Babel, right?
Sure.
I mean, it goes back that far. God's like, I'll divide you up. And well, that's what's still
by
happening.
Language. Yeah.
Yep.
Language and location. There's a reason he put us all in different parts of the planet looking like different kinds of people: brown, white, green, yellow, purple. Who cares? There was a reason he did that.
Yeah. Let me say one thing.
I completely agree with that.
What's that?
I completely agree with that statement. There's a reason behind everything in nature. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Nature loves to conserve energy and collect it.
Yeah.
One thing. What I was up in northern India one time, and I was staying with this Muslim family. Right. It was a very rich family on a houseboat in a place called Srinagar, which is the capital up there. Right. And so it's very dangerous. There was a little war going on and that sort of thing, still going on. And so the guy, I'm having dinner with his family one night, and he goes, Michael, God keeps people in 3 jars. He goes, in the first jar, he keeps the Americans, and he keeps that lid very, very tight because the Americans want to rule the world, and they want to get out and rule the world. And I was like, well, that's true. And he goes, in the second jar, he keeps the Europeans. He doesn't keep that lid on very tight because the Europeans want to rule the world too, but they don't try very hard. I was like, that's true. And he goes, in the third jar, he keeps the Indians. God keeps the Indians in the third jar, but he doesn't keep a lid on that jar because the Indians want to rule the world too. But every time one of them almost gets out, the others pull him back in. I was like, no truer words have ever been spoken.
That is true. That is true.
It's like, yeah. And it is absolutely true. There's so many species of globalists out there, man, and some are just more successful than others.
Do you think any global, and this is just a random question, do you think any globalist actually believes in globalism, or do they believe in self-preservation and wealth? Because there is no
Preservation and wealth.
I'd
That's the
say-
talking point. I don't believe they really. I think that they would like to homogenize us and use weaponized human migration to destroy ourselves. But they believe in power and wealth. Power.
It depends on which system you're talking about, because there's different oligarchical systems that are all globalist, right? I mean, I'm a Christian. I grew up going to church in a church that my grandfather built in Winter Haven, Florida, Nazarene Church, right? And they would always talk about how we're spreading missionaries all over the world and that sort of thing. And I'm out with missionaries all the time. In fact, we're going to be with a missionary tomorrow, right? And so we're globalists, right? We want the whole world to be Christian. Now, Muslims are globalists. They want the whole world to be Muslim, right? Different types, Shia, Sunni, whatever, different subsects. But then you've got also Jews. Many Jews are globalists, but their form of globalism is not to make everybody Jewish. They want to operate the cockpit, right?
That's right.
And so there's different forms. Then there's communist globalists. There's there's different species of globalists, right? They don't all. It's not one size fits all. Different firmwares. They're all, because we all have different cultural firmwares. Different, it's a firmware.
Sure, an embedded system that allows you to think in a way in which you're told to think.
Yeah,
right.
on especially like a cultural firmware, right? We've got our personal firmware, which can rewrite itself to adapt, and then there's a cultural firmware. And some of these cultural firmwares, like the Chinese, they can spread around the world and be successful almost anywhere they go. Not anywhere, but almost anywhere. Same with Jews. They won't be successful everywhere, but they can be successful in many places. Germans used to be like this. Many Christians can too. Like the other night on Christmas dinner, I had dinner with a missionary and a large family. And I asked him how to because I like to read books by missionaries. You learn a lot by these guys from the 1800s and stuff. How do you learn a language? How does a missionary just launch off somewhere without even one word of that language, and they just go out somewhere in the Amazon or something? And how do you boot yourself up? Because this is how they do it, right? You have to learn their language, and then you have to teach them English, and then they teach them Christianity along the way, right? So it's a firmware. So there's a school where you can go to learn how to just boot yourself up into any language and do it quickly, right? It takes highly motivated, intelligent people to do this.
Sure.
And they're highly motivated and highly intelligent. I found this one book from 1892. I found it in Taiwan earlier this year. It's called In Far Formosa. It's from a Canadian missionary. His name was McKay. He was a dentist. And he was out with literally headhunters, man. They're headhunting and doing cannibalism and all this. And he's like, actually, they're pretty nice people, except for the cannibalism and headhunting part. Until he called them the wily Chinese traders come in with their intoxicants and just basically destroy everything, right? Spaniards are famous for that as well.
Sure, get everyone drunk, take advantage of them.
Oh, yeah. Like I found a book.
Chinese Business Practice 101. Go get drunk with the American.
Oh, yeah. I found a book about 2 or 3 weeks ago down in maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now down in Buenos Aires, because they got a lot of old bookstores there, right? And I found this old book. It was from 1648, I think, but it was reprinted in 1923-ish or something. And it was talking about how the Spaniards were getting the Indians drunk in Guatemala and taking advantage of them. But, it's really intense. I mean, they were like talking about how the Indians would just go crazy with the alcohol. It's the same story. I've seen this because I always go to old books. I read a lot of old books.
Me too.
From a couple hundred years, 300 or 400. The older I can get, the better. Like the Bible is the oldest one I've ever seen. And there's probably something older because the Bible's too well written to be the first one.
That's right.
Right. You know what I mean? It's like somebody had a run and start before they started with that one. And so
that's inside of caves, Michael.
Yeah. But I mean, but you read about all these different things where the traders would come in and get the locals drunk, like we did with the fire water with so many, and
like you did with China Ninja.
Yeah, like the Chinese, China Ninja. But the Chinese are always like claiming to be the victim. The British came in with their opium war, but the Chinese were involved in the same opium war, and the Chinese have been doing opium wars before that and after. They're pumping fentanyl right now down in Taiwan. That we were just in Taiwan earlier this year, talking with a friend of the president, had lunch with him and dinner in his office. We were with him several days, right? And he's talking about how the China. I said, look, last time I was in Taiwan, you didn't have all this graffiti on the road. What's going on here? You know, because Taiwan's one of the most civilized places on earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell it had a difference. He's like, yeah, some of our young people are getting into drugs now. I'm like, where they get them from? I can guess, but he said, yeah, China.
You know, that and the American ghetto culture is reaching into Asia now, where everything has to be ghetto. There's no singing of songs. It's all a rap. Everything has to be ghetto.
Let me say something. This is very important. The Indians down the Darien Gap, we're going to be back with them again. We've already met with 2 of the tribal leaders since Ann got back. They talked specifically about that. Like I've spent months down there with those Indians, right? And Imbara in particular, and Kuna as well, but mostly Imbara. And they talk about how the kids, that they're getting a bunch of tattoos now. They're doing a lot of drugs now. They're doing a lot of alcohol. Like some of these villages that I go to so often, like one's called Bajo Chiquito. Just a few years ago, I didn't see any beer or anything like that. It was just big piles of beer cans. The kids are out robbing, literally killing and raping the migrante coming through the Darien Gap. And they're beating their wives and stuff now. And they said they come up to Panama City. They make so much money on all these NGOs doing their invasions. And now it's destroying the Imbara and Kuna culture, especially Imbara culture, right? And they watch this rap stuff. They specifically talk about, they come back, got their hair, the head hat sideways and all that crap. And they're acting like gangsters. I'm out there with them all the time. I've actually, over this short period of time, watch their firmware be rewritten.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's happening even in indigenous,
absolutely,
very, very discrete areas too. Wow. I mean,
that's way out in the jungle, but they come up here. They come up to Panama City and they do
go from
thing.
making, $5 a month to, hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars a day, moving these people, the merchandise of human trafficking up and down these rivers in our little paraguas. So it's
I've been, let me
huge business.
It's in 4 years, it has gone from, they were an agricultural community of farming and livestock to they now have Starlink and Western Union, and they have Coca-Cola, and they're cooking all this, food they never ate before. And these Indians have health problems. Now it's domestic violence, social problems, drug problems, alcohol, violence. They're buying guns in Panama City. And like Michael said, they're robbing each other and robbing the migrants. It's unbelievable what's happened in just 4 years of this.
Now, let me say something. I've been on the Imbara Indians. I've been to probably maybe 30 of their villages, right? Out sometimes alone, sometimes with missionaries, sometimes with just Imbara leaders that we know, like Francisco Agape. And then I've been out in maybe 5 or 6 or 7 Kuna villages. And so the villages that are way off the beaten path, where the migrantes don't come through, they're happy, they're clean, the kids are super nice. They love to climb trees and man, these trees are big, and jump in the rivers and all this stuff, and they always roll in the mud, and they're super healthy, man. They got another
best thing for your system.
They live very long. They're famously have if you look up Kuna, Kuna, and health, you'll see these medical studies of why they live so long. It's like, and they got this, they'll be like 80 years old, 90 years old with perfect teeth and stuff, right? Wow. And so they but the ones that are not on the path of the invasion, the migrante path, the migrants, those villages are very nice, very happy, but the ones that are right on the path, those are the ones that are really deteriorating badly. There was 4 suicides in about the last 6 or 7 weeks, including one about 3 days ago, right? Of young people. Wow. They'd never had suicides here before. Two of the tribal leaders, we had dinner with one and breakfast with the other the next day. And Francisco Agape was the one that I've had him up in Washington with a bunch of congressmen and stuff. But they both were telling us about the suicides and the depressions. He's like, we've never had suicide. I said, are any of the Imbara killing each other now? And he said, there was actually a suicide murder on another, a murder of an Imbara on another Imbara, which is just like, they don't do that, they're just like one big happy family out there until now, right?
It's like over the last 40 years, they've built this perfect playbook of how to corrupt societies and create this degradation of societies and a pathway directly into the United States. So they take the United States culture, whatever that is today, because I don't know all I know is it's like rap music, drugs, and sex.
Right.
And then they take
That's all it's intoxicants are the grease of psychological operations.
Yes.
Then they throw in this crap music and all this just nothing but debauchery everywhere, and it's destroyed.
I blame our CIA for that. They did perfect the color revolution outside this country. How many governments have we overthrown, and now we've done it to ourselves?
And people don't realize the weaponization of all this stuff. Even Ice Cube came out and said, NWA was a CIA operation. Like he's even come out and said that, and yet the music still persists. My son, his friends all listen to it. I tell them every time, so I'm trying to warn them every time. Be careful what you put in your ear. I get that stupid Burger King commercial stuck in my head whenever I'm watching football. They play it every single thing. So I'm thinking, BK, have it your way the entire time. So if that can stick in my head, what is the music that you're listening to stick into your head?
Horrible.
Oh, it's scientifically designed too. Even the Nazis came up. I mean, this goes back to the Sodom and Gomorrah stuff. I mean, this is anything that we're experiencing now is old, except for now we have these things, these phones. And stuff. I mean, but all the basic game plan is all there. I mean, it's.
So you guys are there on a journalistic, trip, obviously, to find out the geopolitics stuff there. Panama has some incredible history there too. Are you going to take some time to dig through that, like their actual history or that entire belt of countries in that area? We don't know much about South America, Central America. They don't teach it in schools.
Well,
that I think would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this region was really discovered because Balboa was looking for more gold and was coming up here. And he brought the Indians from Colombia 500 years ago. And that's who was this Sherpas, right? People that were going to dig and mine for gold and carry it back for the king of Spain.
These rivers run with gold.
And there's a lot of gold in Dimdar Hills around here. I mean, you've got copper, gold. It's all here. So Panama is rich. I mean, everywhere. Look, it's supposed to be dry season right now, but it's raining. I mean, it is. We were supposed to be up in a helicopter yesterday. Today we can't. The ceiling is too low. But everywhere you look is jungle. It's rich. You can grow food here. But like everything else, the weather is all upside down. Something is going on globally with everything right now.
They spraying chemtrails there?
I haven't been able to see that, mostly because since I've gotten here, it's been overcast and gloomy. So I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you right now, this is not normal to have this much rain in almost January. We're moving into January and it's raining. This is dry season. Season. They went from having a complete drought to now and they talked about cloud seeding. Apparently the last president before the Molina was just inaugurated recently was talking about using cloud seeding. We were getting educated on that yesterday, which, if they're using what I believe they used in North Carolina, polysodium acrylate, that is a serious cloud seeder that will increase your water moisture content and anything exponentially. So who knows? I don't know if they're doing it here or not, but that's something we'd have to look into. That's, more research, more time and digging around.
Let me say something about the history. You mentioned that. I mean, this is a historically rich country, but a lot of countries, they don't write about their history. A lot of cultures, it's just vaporware, right? Like I was down in Colombia with a senator, a Colombian senator, and I asked her, what's the best book? We were with a historian, actually. I said, what's the best book on Colombian history? And he's like, there aren't really any good ones, not any that are really old. And anyway, whatever. So, but Panama, this is like the Afghanistan of Central America. I mean, it bankrupted the Scots. That's why Scotland is part of the United Kingdom now. Like they opened something called the Darien Project. What was it called? The Darien Project. Anyway, there's a fort down there. We may go to it this time if we have time. I've flown over it. It's way out. There's no roads to it. But the Scottish were going to come here and build a path between the seas so that they, using Indians and donkeys and mules or whatever, to take cargo between the Pacific and the Atlantic sides, right? But it bankrupted them. That was in the 1790s or so. And then I think maybe it was at 1806, the Scots watching this would know. When was the Articles of Union? I'm sorry, my memory's not good. I need to sleep better. It was about 1806 and something like that. And that's how the Scotland became part of the United Kingdom. Now, when it came to France, they're turning up the bat. They're like, we can make a canal. We did the Suez Canal, and they were bankrupt. And so then we came in.
And we should have been bankrupt.
Oh, yeah. And then we came in and we actually pulled it off. But we actually split off this part. This used to be Colombia. That's why I keep saying to people, Colombia is going to make a claim on this, and they're going to do it with China behind them, right? And they keep saying, why do you keep saying that Colombia is going to make a claim on Panama? I'm like, because
look at the old maps. It's obvious.
Yeah, this was Colombia. We created Panama so we could create the canal, right? And so we're literally doing this interview with you from one of the most important pieces of land on earth. Yeah. That's the reason this is Old Fort Clayton, where we're talking to you from, is literally the Army base, the U.S. Army South headquarters. That's where we're at right now. This is one of the most important places on earth for the United States, right here. And it's far more important than some places like, let's say, Washington, D.C., you know? And
I mean, we can get rid of that tomorrow.
Right here.
Yeah.
And you know, our Navy needs to be able to go through the canal. It goes through right behind us. You know, and
34%, 35% of our export goods come through that canal. It's a tremendous amount of goods that come through that canal. It's so important to this country that most people don't even know it exists. Ask somebody under the age of 21 what the Panama Canal is. They'll probably have no idea.
And to that point, I'm going to give Trump just a little bit of latitude, and I know Michael will.
No latitude for me.
I know he won't have, but
this is big boy rules.
He was in Turning Point, and he's talking to the 20-somethings, and so when he says bombastic things like "we're going to take back the canal," we might take Panama, stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that these kids think about, the information and what is being fed to the 20-something year olds, right? It's got to be bam, 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 and it's so, you know, people's information is coming at them in 7-second increments, and then they move to the next thing, and the next, and the next, and the next. So to get kids' attention anymore, you've got to say bombastic stuff. I'm not saying it's right. It's not right, because people in Panama are going, "What in the hell did he just say?" And he's tweeting this stuff out and whatever. People, they can't fathom that, right? Not everybody plays these 5D chess games or whatever it is, or they just don't play that game at all. You know, Panamanians are very emotional, very thoughtful people. They take the time to look you in the eye and talk to you and greet you everywhere you go. People will not just pass you on the street and look at the floor. They'll say, you know, buenas. They're very engaging down here. So when they're hearing things, it's shocking. But I think to Trump's point, that's not how we are in America. Everybody is so buried in their cell phone. Yes. They can't, you know, you've got to say things to go, wait, what did he just say? And of course, you know, kids are kids. They're going to go, yeah, we're going to take back Panama. They don't even know what they're saying. They have no idea, right? They don't even know what it means.
But yeah,
so
you've got to,
they'll research.
You need an air horn to wake people up. I mean, you really do. It's so bad. It's so bad. And this lull we're in right now, I'm so glad you guys are down in Panama, because I feel like this country, you know, the dollar is back at dominance economically. So everything is fading against the dollar. That's not a good sign from an economics perspective. Eventually that corrects itself very hard, historically proven over 100 years. And since Trump was elected, he's not in office yet, but since he was elected, everyone in the country is like, oh, well, let me just go back to what I was doing. I don't need to do this local politics thing anymore. I don't need to go to school board meetings. Trump's going to fix it. It is literally the worst thing of all time. And I got to admit, you know, the holiday season, I've been taking time away. I haven't filmed in probably a week and a half, because I want to spend time with my family. I'm not a professional journalist. So if I was.
Neither are we.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, you are. Nah. Yes, you are.
No, both
of you guys do incredible work. And just the fact that you're out in these places and bringing an experience to people who don't know that is what journalism is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be who can sell their opinion the best. It's supposed to be, here's an image of this place you don't know about. Here's video footage. Here's the local people. You make your own decision based on the information you have. That is journalism. That's what, and you guys are absolutely journalists.
I want to be crystal clear. I'm not a journalist, and I never have been, and I never will be. I'm a player, right? I want to win. I want the United States and our partners to be free and safe. And I know who some of our enemies are. Communists are one of our enemies. So I'm not going to be like playing like I'm neutral. I am not neutral, right? I don't want communists around. I'm not going to give them a fair shake.
No, and they're the enemies within the gate. I mean, 80% of our congressmen and senators are communists, and that number is being polite.
Openly so, and also dual citizens, which is really it's just so in your face. It's a slap to the Americans that you would have.
Again, over 80%, right, Ann? It's about 80%. Yeah. And just think of what you have to be behind closed doors. That's also a term, crypto, that in order to get that dual citizenship. We're being lied to everywhere we go with everything that comes across our pathway. So having people like you out there is super important. I want to touch on Greenland. You guys talked about Greenland. Maybe Greenland's next. Greenland's all over the news right now as Trump is saying we're going to take back Greenland. What are your views on this? Because I actually think Canada, Greenland, and Panama aren't bad annex ideas, but I'm also not an imperialist. Those are imperialist moves. Those are gaining ground and territory that are not yours, and we will deteriorate that culture as fast as we possibly can as soon as that land is grabbed. But what's the significance of Greenland? Yeah, please, Michael. What's the significance of Greenland?
He's gonna explode if he doesn't.
The first time I met Ann was in Washington, D.C., and she's almost like, hello, I'm Ann Vandersteel. Let me tell you about the DNA, the Declaration of North America. The Declaration of North America is what's unfolding now. Okay, that'll be enough. You take it from there, Ann. I mean, seriously, I'm Ann Vandersteel. Here's what the DNA is.
So there's two, not parallel, but there's two tracks you can look at this conversation. One is that through the Declaration of North America or the Global Compact on Migration, right? The Global Compact of the UN, which is basically Hunger Games, dividing up the world, global governance into regions. And the DNA, the Declaration of North America, signed by the pedophile mushroom on January of 2023, Joe Biden and Obrador in Mexico and Trudeau in Canada, basically made the US, Canada, Mexico into one region, all about DEI, climate, migration, et cetera. And so and they called it regional security. They're not calling us by our countries and by our sovereign names as Americans or Mexicans, Canadians. It's regional. And it's a true global compact on migration. Okay, setting that aside, then there's the other track, which would be basically the restoration of the Monroe Doctrine. And I call it the Trump Doctrine because, well, he's the president incoming.
Sure.
So if you really want to create stability in the Western Hemisphere and excommunicate communism and keep BRICS out of our business, or at least bring them to heel, you have to have some country exert some sphere of influence. But let's be honest, the resources are critical with the direction that we're going with everything electronic. We're not back in the old days. It's big boy rules, as Michael says. We need copper. We need the resources. We need the aluminum that's coming out of Greenland. Gold. We need all these rare earths. We need them. But what can we do in exchange? Well, we can provide security. We can be a beacon of how you actually run a republic if we can get there by eliminating the IRS, eliminating the income tax, eliminating, all these agencies we don't need, the Fed, exactly, all of that. If we can show that, you have countries like Milei and Argentina, which have already slashed and are now getting their country into the black, and they're emulating what the U.S. should be. They're tying themselves to the dollar, and it's elevating their status and paying off 90% of their debt. We can set that example, and we can turn Latin America into the cheap Chinese trading partner that we've had with China, we've now opened the door to communism all over the world. Mm-hmm. So if we can replace China with countries in Latin America, like Brazil, like Argentina, Chile, whatever, make a IT hub, maybe a call center hub out of Panama, but reserve all the very high-end electronic jobs, like, bring all our manufacturing home from China and Taiwan and do it here. If we can do that, we will stabilize this region and we will protect everybody and we will create a stronger, more safer world, because now we have a big part of the world and a huge amount of the trading block, in addition to the breadbasket. Brazil is a massive breadbasket. We have a massive breadbasket, so we can produce food and livestock and energy. We don't need anybody else. And eventually, when you have that kind of ruling power in terms of total food, energy, stability, et cetera, and military might, the rest of the world is going to back down. And China is being exposed to this day as the paper tiger. Even in today, it just came out in the news. We've actually signed it. The Americans actually won a deal where they have now looked into, they've taken over the National Secretariat of Panama Railway, signed a technical consultation contract worth $2.2 million with ACOM, American company. And they're now looking at the Panama-David Frontera Train Master Plan, which is going to connect a lot of Panama. And that was something the Chinese were like, we're going to get it. But guess who didn't get it? They didn't get it. We just got it. That's a big deal because the Chinese are here with infrastructure. They're building a tunnel under the canal. They're building another bridge going over the waterway where the canal is. This is a serious issue. And this is a serious threat to our national security and our global supply chain. So we need to exercise what I would call the Monroe Doctrine / Trump Doctrine. And if we can architect it like that and not fall in line with the global elite under the Declaration of North America and just say, fine, we'll be the region over here. Screw that. Let's just be the superpower block over here, that we are all about sovereignty and freedom. And we're not going to subdue ourselves to the United Nations, which is what the Declaration of North America would do. So again, I'm trying to stay positive that Trump's going to do the right thing. But come January 20th, 12:01 p.m., if I don't start to see him exercising the dissolution of various agencies, including pulling out of the UN, Paris Climate, all these things, my bullhorn is going to be bigger than Michael Yon. It is going to
should be.
And it will be. And I will be Trump's worst nightmare. I will be his worst nightmare because I have supported him from day one. But I'm getting ever more frustrated because of the circumstances around everything. And let's face it, the jab sucks. And it's the information coming out about this poison death shot is really bad. And I think he needs to own up to it. He was duped, or he really wasn't. And he's like all for it. But he needs to come clean on it. He needs to come clean on the platform.
There's a lot that needs to come clean on, that everyone needs to come clean on, and that's one of the refreshing things about having conversations with people that aren't, I always tell people go from one matrix to another. That's the comfort of life. So if you want to remove yourself from the matrix, you can't be involved in any of them. You have to look at everything objectively. And one of the things that I will look at ththings objectively with Trump right now is the fact that, have you ever seen a president overriding a lame duck and having this much attention? So all the cabinet picks, which is filled with Zionists. I mean, it is a Zionist buffet of new cabinet picks. Though I do believe that they love America. I just think that they love Israel more. So, we'll see what happens with that. But I have never seen this where a candidate is elected and there's still a lame duck in office. I haven't heard anything about Joe Biden in months. Like, nobody's heard anything about him. Everything is about what Trump is doing.
Is he still alive? I mean,
was he ever?
I mean, we don't even think about him as president anymore, even though.
Right. Right. So think about that. That's again, uncharted territory. I'm with you. January 20th will be, people are given all these, Elon and Vivek and all the stuff, H-1B. This is all fodder. Like, this is just being thrown out to distract you from the impending economic doom in this country and globally. As you talked about, 40 banks in China. That's the last analyst I talked to. You're looking at 98 banks by the end of next month. So by the end of January, 98 major banks, but they all consolidate into 2 banks. The same thing's going to happen here. We're going to have a slew of regional banks that go bankrupt. They're purchased by Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Citibank. They're all going to acquire these new banking rights, and your money will be more centralized. I have been hearing constantly, and I have no proof behind this, that we will see a CBDC rollout in March. I have no proof behind that, but I hear that from bankers left and right, which would make complete sense. That would happen because you had 4 years of Renegade to be able to do that. Now, of course, there are people who believe that everything we're seeing is fake, which is why I love having you guys on here, because you're in Panama right now. So you'll hear the people saying, "Oh, this is fake." And you touched on BRICS. People in America online are like rooting for BRICS. Americans are rooting for BRICS. This psychological operation is unbelievably strong on people, that you'd be rooting for foreign nations, who half of which are confessed communist, controlling the financial system throughout the world because Americans are mean. Yeah, we're mean. We certainly weaponize our money against other countries. We've definitely enslaved other countries. Wouldn't we be better off correcting those issues instead of capitulating to global powers when it comes to control of finances? And you guys are kind of seeing this. No other nation around the world understands this but Americans, a small group of Americans.
Yeah. It's funny because I keep hearing, because of the Panama thing, people are sending me messages like "Gringo, go home" and that sort of thing. Okay. All right, Mr. Racist, let's get down to this. All right. Let me tell you what's going to happen when Gringo goes home. The Chinese are going to kill you, right? Yeah. I've been to Tibet. I spent more than 19 years around Asia, about a year in and around China, right? They will kill you. They will genocide you. They will not leave you with the canal. You will not exist. It'll be that simple. That's how they play. They are exterminators, right? This is not a joke, right? They think it's like this is a children's game. We're talking about people that can and will do it with biological weapons, cutting off your food supply, or just killing you with drones or something, right? There's so many ways to do it now, and they will do it without hesitation.
And I think anyone who doesn't realize that is foolish.
Yeah,
is absolutely foolish.
To your BRICS point, I will say this. I think what BRICS is doing with the currency is brilliant. I mean, why would you want to have? I mean, talk about the ultimate equalizer. You get a basket of currencies where 40% of your money is backed by gold, and everybody else has their own currencies and their own natural resources. That levels the playing field, and that takes war off the table, because everybody can size everybody else up, and you can get, what they have, and you can trade equitably and fairly that way. I think what they're doing is what we should be doing. And I believe that's what Trump will bring in. I think that's what Bitcoin is bringing in. I think that's what, the replacement of SWIFT with XRP is going to help do. I think all these things are good moves in the right direction. We need to get.
Unfortunately, in that statement, unfortunately, SWIFT already has a contract with a company called Chainlink that uses what's called CCIP, which is it stands for Cross-Chain Interpolarity Protocol. You no longer need a bridge currency with CCIP. It's already signed there. I keep hearing that XRP is going to replace SWIFT over and over again, but the reality is that they have signed a contract with Chainlink. Chainlink has also been the preferred crypto being used for cross-border payments by Trump's Liberty Financial organization.
Giant bird just went out the window. I don't know what that was.
That was a beacon of truth. There's a little truth interjection. So while I'm not rooting against anyone, I do root for truth and understanding that SWIFT will not be replaced by a singular entity, especially an entity from Silicon Valley will not replace a global trend. But BRICS by themselves, here's the issue. I love the conversations of money because we all keep hearing we're going to back our currency by gold. Zimbabwe just did that. The Zimbabwe gold-backed dollar is down 65% since they put it out there. You can't have a gold-backed currency to stabilize the currency unless you have actual legitimate, credible people backing it. One of my friends in my neighborhood here actually did gold assay and gold audits of nations with one of the big three accounting firms for his entire career. And he told me straight up, he goes, Eric, if there's ever another gold-backed dollar, it's all going to be a fraud. All of it. Like that's why Bitcoin was created. And that's why it does have its mechanism of digital gold. I think that if we plan on doing like BRICS, what BRICS is doing is great because it sells to all the people who still believe in gold-backed currency. I'm a historian financially, and there's never been a successful gold-backed dollar ever. They've all failed. We were the last one. They all failed because eventually you get corrupt communists in your legislation that steal the gold or modify that stuff. But we're on the right path there. But I want to make sure the stuff I understand well, I make sure I get out there because I don't think, this video is going to give me more.
Excellent point. It's as good as the people that are governing. I agree. But when you have good people with dollars that have backed by nothing, you have the full faith and credit. Unfortunately, our faith and credit is overextended, $36 or $37 trillion, whatever we are right now. We have a lot to which we have to atone to reset all of that. And so, the race is on essentially, and the race is happening right here in Panama, right before our very eyes. And it's coming down to who is going to, if it's the global war on resources, who is going to be able to control the resources. But I'm hoping this time, and this is what I want people to understand. It is up to the people around the world. It is up to us to govern ourselves. God gave us all, discernment, and he gave us the right to be free. It doesn't just apply to the Americans because we have a constitution that supposedly says it that nobody pays attention to anymore. We have to step up as a human species to, big boy rules and govern ourselves. And I think that race is happening right now. And I believe that we have an opportunity for a true, as Trump says, a golden age where all boats will be lifted as the tide comes up. But it's going to be a very turbulent ocean until, I guess, enough people around the globe decide to step into the responsibility of themselves and get out of this wake of, oh, the state's going to take care of me. Because so long as we stay there, we're going to just keep circling the drain, and the same thing is going to happen. It's just going to shift the power structure around the globe, and it's we're our own worst enemy at that point.
That couldn't be a truer statement of America today. We are absolutely our own worst enemy based on our own low preservation need. It's almost like Americans don't care about preserving America. It's like we don't care about preserving our own families, our money, our wealth, our freedom, our sovereignty, our free speech, nothing. Yeah. So this is what makes this awesome talking to you guys. If you go to Greenland, I'm getting you back on here for sure. For sure. I can't wait.
There's a lot of birds here, by the way. That's why I got distracted looking out the window. You can see that it's getting late in the day and the birds start flying around, because the night shift and the day shift.
Well, it's winter. They're all down there right now. You got all the geese down there. All the geese from America are down there right now.
Well, I haven't seen any of those go by.
Geese. We did see a pterodactyl just go. I'm just kidding. I don't know what it was. A big bird. It was something big.
It had a cow. It was carrying a cow.
Well, that might have been a Texas bird evading our winter down there. That's carrying away a cow. Yeah. Well, guys, this is amazing. So, and most people who are following me follow you as well, so they have an idea here. But let us know where we can get a hold of you, how we can support what you're doing in the future. And I definitely want to get on and do an economic on your show again. and go through all the other stuff, because I think there's just so much propaganda out there.
I learned something about this other company. I had not heard of it yet, so I want to dive into that again.
Yeah, look into Chainlink. You know, marketing is and not that I'm an advocate of it. I when it comes to crypto, I'm Bitcoin only, but I'm also pro transparency.
Yeah.
You know, this is December 29th, so all the XRP people tell me that by tomorrow the entire Bitcoin will be at 0 in 2 days because Tether will collapse, and you know, all this other crazy stuff. I dig through all the psyops. That's what I do with you guys. But I'm the financial nerd. I'm the geek. I love hearing about what's happening in these foreign countries, because I wish I was with y'all. And Michael, we have an interview we got to finish up. On the other hand, you and I to close that one out. Hopefully, you read that book I gave you so that we can finish that conversation there, because I think we have so many changes.
I didn't read it. There's no chance, man. You won't believe this stuff. We were down tracking the bioceanic corridor in Argentina just days ago, less than a week ago.
That is crazy.
I was with indigenous people in Argentina, actually, on the Chile Bolivia border.
Argentina-Bolivia border.
Yeah, it was on they come together. Chile and Bolivia and Argentina come together. So we were out right there. But so we went to the Bolivian border. They wouldn't let me in Bolivia. They let Masako in, and they let an Argentinian friend in. So I had to wait inside of Argentina and watch people crossing their border right by the border patrol place. Just like,
why didn't they let you in?
Because I'm American. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought we were allowed everywhere. I thought everyone loved us.
Yeah.
No way. But if you're Chinese, I'm sure they'll let you march right in. Chinese kill them all. They have no idea what's coming.
Are you seeing military down there? Like, what are you seeing on the Chinese side in Panama?
No.
If there's any military here, they're definitely not in uniform.
No, they're not in uniform. Definitely not.
I mean, actually, it's hard to imagine that they're not. But I mean, our military's here in uniform. Not very many. Our special forces and SEALs go down.
They train in the center front
stuff. But most of the Panamanians don't actually see them. And some stay in this hotel, actually, sometimes.
Wow. So you guys are in the thick of it.
They're not in uniform when they come. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you know,
they stay down in Darien at Marguerite's place at Hotel Tennessee and help train the center front. Our guys do.
Yeah.
Are they doing anything in the Darien Gap to slow it down at all? Is there anything happening there of good news to slow down this constant?
The rains have slowed them down. God said, okay, have some rain.
Let's be honest. The center front is fantastic. I mean, we saw a whole bunch of them at the airport today. We were renting a car. And
center front's their border patrol, sort of police, army. They're super professional,
super fit. But their whole organization is probably the size of the LA Police Department. So if you think about that and you think about the flows coming through, when we were in Baja Chiquito, there were 6,000 immigrants and 19 center front officers and us. So if they had decided to hang us up, draw a quarter, and rape all of us, there was nobody going to stop them. So it just wasn't going to happen. So this is what you're dealing with. They don't have the resources when it comes to finances or tools and equipment. As Michael says, their comms needs help. There's no way. And Americans welched on the deal. When Mayorkas came down to Molino's inauguration this past June, he promised to deliver, help, money and planes and all this stuff, help him close, did nothing. So Trump has made, Holman has stepped up to the mic and said, we're definitely going to follow through on that. And they should, because it's our own money that is funding this NGO process down here, bringing all these people and destroying their country. So, but they don't have the resources to do it. They're doing the best they can so that people don't die. I mean, they rescue people constantly in the jungles and whatnot, but they just don't have the resources, honestly, Eric. So it's tough.
So they are trying, but
they're trying the best they can. Really, what they're doing is they're trying to keep the peace. I mean, like I just said, in Baja Chiquito, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was unbelievable what was going through there. And only 19 center front, all armed, but 19 for 6,000 people that day. There was no way. No way.
You don't have enough rounds to take care of that issue if you wanted to.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I hope you stay safe down there. You got me concerned about you now. We'll be praying for you up here. No doubt about that. And just let everybody know how they can reach out to you, how they can help out, how they can support your organizations and what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. Go ahead and share that out here. We'll put it on the summary of the video as well.
Oh, good. I'm on Substack. So Michael Jan on Substack. My last name is Jan, Yankee Oscar November. And I go on X every day and slam the drug meister Elon Musk until he kicks me off. What a drug addict, man. And so do you really believe he's really all that space stuff? You ever seen
No.
somebody just stay high all the time and do all the ketamine and all that crap and actually go to Mars?
I have seen some smart people that have drug problems, but I've never seen them at that scale. No, not at all.
Like at the scale where, hey, let me put a chip in your head, and take the jab, and I can go to Mars. You know.
But only if he can get some cheap Indian labor to help him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
the key.
Why don't you stop being high all the time, and maybe you can do it yourself, right? Anyway, I'm on X until he kicks me off and does terrible things. He threatened the United States a couple of days ago. I'm sure you saw that.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Stateless migrant.
I think it was bait.
Follow me on annvandersteel.com. And I actually, we have a foundation called AmericanMadeFoundation.org. It's 501 nonprofit. So if you want to support, we're using a lot of that money to help the victims of North Carolina. We've bought new kitchen equipment. We've helped house people, particularly those that were going to lose their children to CPS. I was working with Judges Rescue on that. And I'm making some more donations into some other groups that are actually getting real trailers for people to move into so they don't have their children taken from them, because this is the kind of country that we live in right now, where your state decides what's better for the family. The kids living in foster homes versus with their real parents. But AmericanMadeFoundation.org and AnnVandersteel.com, you'll find all of my information there.
And all of the everything Ann just said there, she was with friends of mine in North Carolina, and she actually does what she says she's going to do. So there's a lot of people that'll use those things, but that money is going directly into those neighborhoods and those communities, which absolutely need it.
Yeah.
So Michael, Ann, thank you so much for taking some time away from your Panamanian trip, which doesn't sound too relaxing to me at all. It actually sounds like a pretty stressful trip out there.